How are we doing on attendees? Shall we wait a few more minutes?
No, go right ahead.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So welcome to the Belonging Project's webinar, Stress Management and Self-Care in 2021, Finding Effective Tools 1 hour at a time, no longer 1 day at a time or 1 month at a time, 1 hour at a time. So I just want to, first of all, thank Corey and Finn and Whitney and Mike, who's in the background making all this look really good, for having us today and for putting this together. The Belonging Project is a national effort to support and build community among diverse law students, attorneys, and their allies to combat the impact of COVID-19 on diversity in the profession. It brings together legal industry partners to provide tools, resources, and programs to support the continuing personal and professional development of diverse legal talent. It brings the power of Ubuntu, the universal bond we have as a people, and the focus on collective responsibility to the legal community. Today is the first in the February Wellbeing series. Today's program is focused on stress management and self-care. Next week, there's going to be a program on mindfulness. On the 17th, there's a program on unpacking racial trauma. And on the 24th, we're going to be connecting mind and body through a yoga program. So I hope that you will, after today, make sure to look for those programs and get yourself signed up for them as well. So we're going to be learning about stress management and self-care tools today. But what I really want you all to understand as we get this program started is that I'm going to ask you to really be present to how you're feeling today, right? So I would love for you to just, as much as you can, clear tech out of your way and just be here with me, right? Be here with yourself and with me, because you've given yourself this hour and that's really important. So just be all in. I'm going to give you some interesting tools and some ways to think about managing your stress on a regular basis. Here's the thing. 2020 was the year of stressors that never seemed to end. It's like we're rolling into just a continuation of that same stress level. The pandemic, racial inequality, the turbulent economy, political unrest, it just never seems to end. It's like crises within crises. So simply said, you can't avoid stress right now. There's just really no way to do it. But the goal is to give yourself a meaningful way to pull out of the stress response and into relaxation, right? I'm saying relaxation in quotes, so that you're ready for the next stressful thing that's inevitably going to come to you, that will come in front of you, whether it's, maybe running out of toilet paper or there's an insurrection happening in the Capitol, and being present with what is. So today, you're going to learn some easy tools to get out of your head, to break that stress cycle and reset your nervous system, which is so important. Know this, as we talk about stress, and in the beginning of the program today, we're going to be talking a little bit about stress so that you understand what it is and how to recognize it. But then I also want to teach you, more importantly, overriding your system, right? The more you understand how stress works and the more you notice it, the easier it's going to be to reset and get it out of your system. We're going to use some polls today so that we can just have a little interaction. And of course, there's going to be a Q&A. So if you have questions, I'll be doing my best to watch those and monitor them. If I don't get to your question because I'm trying to get through content, my email is available. You are more than welcome to reach out to me. And if you don't get your question answered, please include your email and I'll make sure to reach out and answer it if I don't get to it in the program. So Mike's going to open our first poll, and I just want to get a sense of how you all doing today. Knowing that, there's just so many stressors right now. There are just a few popping up on the screen, right? So where is your stress level? Is it minimal? Is it average, manageable right now, right? Or is it just off the charts? You are having one of those days where it is like up here, right? Because here's the thing. There's just, again, not going to be an end to it. It's going to keep coming at you. So really understanding that all these things that you currently see on your screen are in the background playing in some form for you or playing around for some of your friends and colleagues is just really critical to level set where we are. So if you can just sort of, again, answer that poll. Okay, and so that's great. Most people who are here today are at about an average, right? So most people are saying it's manageable. All right. So what we're going to do is we are actually going to just do a little breath work to get ourselves present and fully ready to talk about stress. So this is the first tool that I'm going to give you, and I'll touch on this again later in the program, but I want everybody, to the extent that you're comfortable, to please just close your eyes. No one can see you. You're by yourself, hopefully. I'd love you to close your eyes just gently and just feel your feet on the ground, your body in the chair. And we're going to just do a little bit of breathing for a few minutes. So I would like you, when you breathe in, to put your hand either on your stomach or your chest, and just think of inflating a balloon in your stomach when you breathe in. You are sending all that air down to your stomach. And when you breathe out, I want you to imagine that you have a bubble blower in front of your mouth, right? The little bubble blowers, maybe some of you have them with your children, right? And you're blowing air out through your mouth, blowing a bubble across the room. So I would just like you to take 5 nice slow breaths on your own, and I give you about a minute to do that. And then when you're done, just open your eyes again. Okay, so I'm just going to invite you to come back into the room. Reopen your eyes, rejoin us. So deep breathing is one of the best ways to lower stress in your body. It's always there for you, right? Because you're always having to breathe. And it's something that you can easily center yourself on very quickly. Here's what's really cool about it. It sends a message to your brain to calm down and relax, right? It is easy to learn, it is accessible at all times, and it has an enormously positive effect, triggering neurons in your brain, telling your body to relax. So I recommend to people that I coach that they, when they're feeling pretty stressed, that they walk away from whatever they're working on, move to the side, look out the window, close their eyes, whatever is possible to sort of separate from the stressor in front of you. Close your eyes and just take 5 to 10 nice, slow, deep breaths in that way. If you want to sort of up your breathing game a bit, you can also use the 4-7-8 breathing technique, which is just, breathing in that same way for the count of 4, holding for 7, and then exhaling for 8. And you can do that 10 to 20 times. It's absolutely proven to be one of the fastest, most efficient ways to calm yourself down. All right, so again, what I want to talk to you all about is just briefly understanding stress. So here's a definition on the screen. Hopefully you're seeing that. What's stress, right? What is it? And stress is like a big word. We throw it around, but here's the bottom line. This is the simple definition. It's when perceived expectations are greater than the resources to meet those expectations, right? Whatever they are. And sometimes when I say perceived, sometimes they're real. Sometimes those perceived expectations are imaginary, right? Sometimes they're not actually real. Sometimes they're internal, your own expectations of yourself. Sometimes they're someone else's expectations of you. And then resources, right? And again, sometimes that's, do you have the resources you need? Do you have the energy? Do you have the motivation? Do you have the focus? Can you meet the demand in front of you? Or it's external, it's not enough time. Maybe your computer's blowing up, right? Maybe your AirPods decide not to work in the middle of a webinar, God forbid. Maybe you need some help from colleagues around you. There's loads of external resources that you might need. And that's a time where you might want to reach out and say, I need some help here, I'm drowning. So again, understanding stress and what really it means is so critical to starting to understand how to break it for yourself, break that cycle. I'm going to give you a little simple example around perceived expectations because I think it's a really important one to hold on to. Back in before times when we could actually be in the office, right? Oftentimes you would hear from someone you were working with about their frustration about the constant demand of work, right? So I'll give you an example that actually happened to someone that I coached. The person was sort of sitting in their office at the end of the day, getting ready to maybe leave and head home to be with their family, and a partner walked into the office and said, a partner walked into the associate's office and said, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" And the associate later, sort of when we were working together, said, "I was so frustrated that this person walked into my office as I was about to leave, and I was like, he just like pounded his hands on the desk, like, why right now? I'm about to leave." And it turned out that the partner was actually coming in to acknowledge the associate for something that he had done really well, and the partner was really trying to sort of step up and give him some positive feedback. So it was, again, this like sense of the associate was like, this person's here to give me more work or to give me some sort of criticism. And in fact, the reaction that he had of frustration was not warranted. So sometimes, again, there is a perceived sense of somebody wanting something from you that isn't real. So just really being aware of what is going on around you, what might you need to meet the demand in front of you. Okay. So I'm going to ask Mike to do our second poll for us, to think about what are you all struggling with the most right now? And you know what? I know maybe some of this applies to all of you when you see the screen, but I'd like you to think about what is most stressful, right? And some of these things, again, any given moment, it might be all of them, but one of them is most present for you. So we'll just let that run. And I would encourage you all to really, on a regular basis, sort of check in with yourself on, is today the day where I'm worrying that my AirPods are going to break, right? Or my dog is going to bark in the middle of the webinar? Or is it a day where I'm worried that I could have been exposed to COVID? Or I'm worried that, there's going to be another insurrection in the Capitol? Or I'm worried that, the snow is going to make it so that I don't have power. Like, what are the things in front of you? Okay. We'll just let that poll run. So I'm seeing, meeting the demands of work right now it's 46% of you are saying that that's a real struggle. And, I'm hearing that from a lot of people, that the job demands are enormously high right now. We are in a professional services industry. Many of you I know are practicing law, whether it's in-house or working in a firm. Some of you are perhaps working with the lawyers. There's a lot of stress, and that is a really normal thing for people to be worried about right now. And as a result, there's an inattention to ourselves, right? So let's look at what can we do about that, right? So this slide is showing you the idea of acute stress versus chronic stress. And before we started today, Sin and I were just, when we were getting ready to talk, she made such a great point about the idea of, there are moments in our lives where stress actually serves you. So for example, if you're about to be in a car accident, you see a car cut you off and you slam on the brakes and you stop your car very quickly, and you feel that rush of, and you're able to control the car and not get into an accident, right? And you feel that rush of adrenaline. And then afterwards, people often report feeling absolutely exhausted and worn out. That is an involuntary reaction that should happen biologically. It comes from the fact that before we lived in homes, we lived out in the wilderness, right? As human beings, we had to be able to run away from predators. And so there are times in our life where we have to have that adrenaline and that cortisol kick in to be able to meet the very scary demand in front of us. And again, you have a stress response, which is a biological one. You often, some people fight, some people freeze, some people run away. It can also depend on the situation that you're presented with. But the idea is that exhaustion afterwards is endorphins flooding your body, and that should happen. It is the involuntary and voluntary relaxation response, right, that is supposed to happen. What's happening right now, however, and often happens when you're in a very demanding professional career, as well as facing a pandemic and all the other stresses that we have, you're in a state of chronic stress. Right, so the idea of chronic stress is that there is a trigger, whatever it is, pandemic, kid gets sick, whatever it is. And your stress level comes up, your cortisol comes up, and your adrenaline. But the problem is there's never a break from that stress, right? And you stay in that stress response on a consistent basis. And therefore, you never have the relaxation system kick in. Basically, your sympathetic system and your parasympathetic system, which control that relaxation response, stop working. So what I want you to see, though, at the bottom of this slide is that you can voluntarily send messages to your brain to recover. It is not all lost, right? Even though you're in a state of chronic stress, all is not lost. All right. So let's talk a little bit about how do you do that. And by the way, one of the things to remember about chronic stress is the overuse of the stress system of that sympathetic and parasympathetic system means that it actually starts to break down your immune system, which you certainly do not want happening right now. But again, that secret weapon of being able to flood your body with endorphins is very much within reach. Okay. Again, one sort of final point here about stress, we all have indicators, right? And awareness and vigilance of when you are in a stress response is so important. It's really important to know, are you someone who runs away? Are you someone who stays there and fights? Or are you someone who just sort of freezes? Do you have a go-to? So we're going to put up the third poll here just to get a sense of the fact that people are kind of all over the place with how they respond to stress. And again, it might be depending on where you are in that given moment. There may be days where you just say, I just need to go sleep. I don't have it in me anymore to deal with this. The other part here to know that's so important is we all also have physical indicators or behavioral indicators of when we are stressed. So I'm just going to read out a few of those and think about when I read these out, what comes up for you, and also think about your family members who you're all probably spending a lot of time with right now, more than usual, and about your colleagues or even neighbors. So some of those signs are, right, an exhaustion, worrying excessively, maybe wanting to be alone, cursing, yelling, having trouble forming sentences, feeling like you can't have fun, having a stomach ache, headaches, other pain in your body, not wanting to eat or eating all the chocolate, sweating, having chills, maybe getting muscle aches even, trouble remembering things, you start misplacing things, feeling confused, maybe even again feeling like really unreasonably angry. All of these things I hear from people are coming up, and they may be coming up for you. And what I want you to know is that when you start, for example, like I'm someone who never loses things, and about a week ago I was feeling really stressed, and I lost like 3 things in a row. And I was like, there is something up with me when I lose 3 things in a row. And that's, again, sort of a moment where you say to yourself, you know what, I never lose things. There's something going on. I need to go check in with myself, right? So again, just those behavioral or emotional feelings are often your body trying to send off the warning sign, hey, I'm really feeling stressed. You need to give me a break here. So we're just looking at the poll. It's on the screen. I mean, a lot of you are feeling physical symptoms when you experience stress and, strong emotions. So, not very many of you yell or curse, which that's awesome. I was actually recently in an exchange with some friends where we were talking about the creation of new curse words that were kid-friendly. So good that lots of you aren't cursing. But physical symptoms, it's really common, right? Red face, an increased heart rate, your shoulders might tense. I know another one is people report their jaw feeling really tight, like clenching your teeth, maybe your voice gets a little shaky. So again, just thinking with yourself, once you've answered this poll, what are those symptoms? And just jot them down on a piece of paper, because it's a really helpful reminder when you are in a stressful situation, what those clues are, so that you can, again, invoke the relaxation response for yourself, okay? Again, just a quick note here, the idea that stress is catching, actually, just like lots of other things these days. But when you're stressed, oftentimes, even if you think you're hiding it, people are picking it up, right? Your family might be picking it up from you. Your colleagues might be picking it up from you, even on Zoom. And it just makes you less effective. So just being aware of the stress indicators of other people around you is really important so that you can start to manage them as well as yourself. Okay, So I just want to say one quick other thing here about your physical being. So there's something called the vagus nerve system. Some of you may have already heard this, but just to sort of reinforce the idea that this is not a woo-woo concept that I'm talking about here when I talk about stress. The vagus nerve system counterbalances it runs from your brain to your body, right? It is a cranial nerve that connects your brain to your body. And it is actually something that is there and intended to counterbalance that fight, flight, freeze, that feeling you get when you're in a stressful situation. And there are ways, and the things we're going to talk about next are ways to stimulate your vagus nerve and get it to kick in to start to help you to calm down and relax and get out of that chronic stress feeling. And I want to just reemphasize here again that none of this is going to make you feel completely unstressed given the time we're living through right now, and maybe for a very long time. And so you may need to use all of the things I teach you today at any given moment in the coming year, okay? And so I want you to understand this is a journey, not a destination, and you're gonna need to learn to practice some of the things we're gonna talk through today, and it will help, right? It will help. All right, so what can you do? So it's really easy, right? Remember, SNAP. The idea here is stop. What is that stress indicator? We just talked about some of them. I read some of them off. Hopefully you wrote some of yours down. Note it, right? What's going on? Is it something that is like absolutely off the charts, really feeling crazy stressed? Or is it maybe something that's a little more manageable, like you just need to get a glass of water, right? And it's not quite as dramatic as you thought. These days, right, at any given moment, you might get exposed to COVID, and that's really scary, and that's going to send you into a higher stress spiral. That's going to be a time where you need a bigger tool to use than maybe you're a little dehydrated or exhausted because you've been working for a really long period of time in a row. Analyze the resource deficiency. What do you need, right? Do you need to go take a walk? Do you need to do a breathing exercise? Do you need to go and meditate, talk to a friend? Really try to figure out, is there something that you could do or ask for that would maybe take away some of the stress, and then make a plan, okay? So again, we're gonna talk about that plan now. And woven through all of this is the idea of your breath. Everything I'm going to talk about right now goes back to that breathing exercise we did in the beginning today. The idea of the oxygen in your body getting to your brain, sending that signal for your system to calm down. And everything we talk about in the next 20 minutes or so is going to tie back to that breathing exercise and the importance of getting more oxygen to your brain. All right. All right. So we already did one of these tools, and I'm going to talk to you about all of them today, but I want to first get a sense of what tools are you all using. So Mike, if you can pull up that last poll for us. My favorite tool to relieve stress is, right? What is it for you? Again, maybe you want to answer with all of these, and some days I scream into a pillow, and some days I want to run and hide in the tent or the basement of my house. But what's your favorite? What's your go-to? So while we're waiting for those responses to come in, let's talk about the basics. And when I say the basics, these are things that should feel really easy for you to do. And when I read them, I'm gonna describe them to you. And some of you may say like, well, of course I would do that. But what I want you to think about is an intentional choice when you decide to do some of the following things when I call them the basics, right? So don't just do them, but do them with the intention of self-compassion and giving yourself a literal gift in the moment. So in the morning, I almost always start my day in the way I'm going to tell you in a minute, and I very quickly go to exercise. Even if it's 15 minutes, I honor that moment of exercise, and I do it with an intention of, this is for me, this is to make me better at my job today. So again, not just going into sort of automatic mode or robotic mode, but actually having an intention around what it is that you're choosing to do. All right, so I've been married to my husband for, I guess it's 11 years now. We are each other's second spouse, and he's from the South, and when we were first dating, he would wake up in the morning and he loved to hop out of bed and say, let's greet the day with a resounding yelp. And I often would think to myself, like, what am I doing with this crazy man, right? What is he doing a resounding yelp? What does this even mean? But what's really cool is he still does it, and it's caught on. So the idea is wake up, let your feet hit the floor and don't reach for your phone, right? Don't start checking the news. Don't start scrolling through social media, but instead sit up, put your feet on the ground, and take a nice long breath. And try to do 4 or 5 breaths in the way that I just told you this morning. When you do, think of something that's going to make you happy, right? Even if it's the last time you were at the beach, even if it's your favorite robe that you're going to put on your body, right? And smile. Like when you finish breathing, put a smile on your face. Even when you're tired and you need your coffee and you're about to go get it, right? Put a smile on your face, because absolutely smiling and laughing is another quick way to elevate your mood and release some stress. And a lot of people will report that when they first wake up in the morning, there's a high level of stress because of sort of that realization of the world coming at you when you wake up from sleeping, right? The relief of being asleep and out of the craziness that we're living through all comes rushing back in. So pull out the sheets, put your feet on the ground, and take a moment to think about a resounding yelp, some breaths, and a smile. Okay? Eat and sleep well. Again, I know everybody says this, the idea of sleeping may be hard these days because you're working really hard, trying to figure out how to keep it all going. But I'm going to tell you, we all know 8 hours of sleep is ideal. But if you can get at least 6 or 7, I would love that. Whatever you can do to get yourself to sleep at night. I know that I've found immense help from sleep masks. Using the Calm app, they have these beautiful sleep stories on the Calm app these days. White noise, darkening the room, just so important to make sure that you're getting some sleep. And if you are exhausted and you need a 10-minute nap in the afternoon these days, take it, right? Get yourself some rest. Eat and hydrate, right? In times of high stress, our bodies crave sugar and starches and salt. But we know this, people who eat a healthy diet are less prone to get sick. So try to eat some vegetables if you can, try to feed your energy needs of your immune system. One person I coach was, this is something so crazy and simple, but, this person was working in a home office and the family was outside the office, and the person I was coaching felt really worried about leaving and going to the kitchen to get snacks and water because my client didn't want to go disrupt the family by going into the kitchen. And so we figured out that it would be really helpful for the person to just have some snacks in her office and to just, so she went on to Amazon, ordered herself up a bunch of snacks, got a really nice glass water bottle, and it really shifted how she was feeling during the day because there wasn't as much pressure about, can I really go to the kitchen and get a snack and not upset my kids and my nanny when I'm out there. So just get some snacks in your office, some cashews, some clementines, whatever feels easy for you to have nearby to keep yourself nourished. On the other hand, sometimes our favorite meal, a cherished dessert, a nice smoothie, maybe even a latte in the afternoon can really bring some nice pleasure and relief when we're feeling stressed and lift up your emotional state. But that all being said, if you do get that nice snack, be mindful when you have it, right? Wrap your hands around the coffee mug or take small bites of the piece of chocolate and think about how good it tastes and how much you're enjoying it. So do it with intention and with attention to the moment, okay? Don't just cram it in your mouth. The third thing, again, another basic, just reach out to your friends, to your tribe, right? For comfort and support. We're being asked to shelter in place. Many of us, we're still living like that. We've been, 11 months living in quarantine in many instances, and that's really hard. We're not meant as humans to be living separate from each other. We're meant to connect and be with each other. And so making sure that you are connecting with people, even if it's by text, right? Ideally, you maybe have phone calls or you're on FaceTime or Zoom with family members and friends, but you don't have to be isolated. And I know everybody's working really hard and there are days where you just feel exhausted and it's hard to think about connecting with someone. But frankly, I have group texts with some of my friends. In fact, I know Sabrina Sachs was going to be here today, and she and I are in the same book club. We have been for a very long time. And we have this group text that on many days just brings me an enormous amount of joy and relief. We exchange funny gifts and memes, like the Bernie memes have just been so entertaining over the last few weeks. So just, calling a friend, finding something you can smile about. And one of the cool things is laughing with somebody actually, it activates that vagus nerve I was talking about before. It actually activates the parasympathetic system to help you calm down and bring endorphins into your body. Okay, number 4 of the basics is productive distraction. Sometimes just moving around and doing some small project, crossing an item off your to-do list can really help you feel a lot more empowered and a lot less stressed. So go clean a drawer, right? Or empty out a trash can, or maybe cross something off your to-do list, like cleaning out your email, maybe clean out like 10 emails. Something that, or even something as simple as filling the soap dispenser, right? Or getting a roll of toilet paper out of your storage closet, whatever it is, right? Change the water filter. A productive distraction, but again, with intentionality, with the thought of I'm doing this to give myself a break, right? And feel yourself really in the moment. Don't do it sort of, again, without thinking about it, without intentional and conscious choice. One of my colleagues wrote this great article about micro breaks, and I love that concept. Just a really tiny break, right? The stepping away from whatever is physically or mentally draining you. Sometimes that's reading, again, like a poem. Sometimes it might be looking at a funny meme. Sometimes it might be, you know, taking a walk outside for 5 minutes, looking up at the tops of the trees, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be an hour. It doesn't even have to be a half an hour. Just, again, that little tiny intentional moment. One of the other ones I love is just putting on your favorite song, right? I love Spotify. I love putting on like some great songs. The other night, my son wanted to have a little dance party, and we just sang at the top of our lungs and danced in our living room. And my neighbors happened to see it because the curtains weren't closed, and they sent a very funny little message over to me saying, "We love your dance party. Can we join?" But what's cool is even that singing or that laughing or that talking, it actually activates your vocal cords, which in turn stimulates that vagus nerve that I was talking about before, which is really good for your body and kicks those endorphins in. So a lot of these things, you're probably doing them. They're easily accessible to you, but it's about the intentional conscious choice to do them to relieve stress for yourself. All right, so let's talk about some of, and I see that most people who've answered the poll have said physical exercise is bringing a lot of stress release, and I love that people are exercising, and breathing exercise. A lot of you are using them, so that's fantastic. And hopefully the people who are not having an outlet are going to find some outlets today. I'm loving that nobody's screaming into a pillow. That's an enormous relief. All right, so let's talk about progressive muscle relaxation. So this is a relaxation technique that's based on the idea of tensing or tightening one muscle group at a time, followed by an intentional phase of relaxation. Again, based on the idea that mental calmness and breathing is the result of physical relaxation. So we're not going to have time to practice this together today, but it's very simple. The idea is that you are tensing a group of muscles and holding them for about a count of 10 to 15 seconds. And then when you're doing that, you want to exhale, right? And let it go. So you might want to start with, tense your eyes and hold them, or tense your hands or your arms all at one time. And again, holding them and then releasing them and exhaling. And move your way through your body. You can start with your face and move down, or you can start with your feet and move up, however feels most accessible to you. But the idea here is at any point you can do this, and you can do it at night if you're having trouble falling asleep. You can do it even if you're sitting on a long Zoom call. You can do it with your hands and your arms and your feet. And this is something that I know that a lot of people who have insomnia report is really helpful, because it is sending you that signal to your brain to calm down, right? The endorphins flood your brain. I'd love to invite you all afterwards, anytime in the next 24 hours to practice this. And we will be sending out an email after the program today that will have some additional attachments for you. It'll have the deck that I've shared with all of you today, and there will be something about progressive muscle relaxation in there too. So feel free to use that, and I'd love for you all to practice. Okay. So the next two tools are really, really, really powerful. And mindfulness meditation is I'm sure many of you have already heard this, thought about it, talked about it. There's amazing people out there who are teaching mindfulness. I'm personally, such a fan, and I can't say enough about how mindfulness helps. What I want you to understand, though, is it's simpler than you think, right? It does not have to be sitting in a corner or sitting on a pillow for some extended period of time with sort of like your hands in your lap. It's ultimately what mindfulness comes back to is focusing your attention with intention, right? Paying attention on purpose to the present moment. I did a presentation in the end of last year with the head of mindfulness for Google. And I love something she said. She said, yes, can people meditate for long periods of time? Is that ideal? Sure. If you really want to talk about meditation in its formal practice, yes, that's what you need to do. But what she teaches people over and over is just standing up and feeling your feet on the ground with, again, attention to the feeling of the ground under your feet, right? Touching all of your toes, your heel onto the ground, ideally with bare feet, and just closing your eyes and breathing for a few minutes is an incredibly powerful way to start to send those calming signals to your brain. So the cool thing about mindfulness is and we're going to do a little meditation together today, just a short one. But it creates awareness to what's going on with you, what's the context around you, what about others. It's going to bring in the idea of non-judgment and non-attachment, right? So it's going to take you out of that stressful feeling or the interpretation of a negative situation. If you're focused on your breath, it's really hard to obsess about the 10 things that are really scary out there, right? So I'm going to give you a quick example of how I've found mindfulness really helpful over the last year. I live with my husband and my 10-year-old son, and sometimes my daughter, who's away at college part of the time, but comes home sometimes. And my husband and my son frequently, as boys do, leave the toilet lit up, right? And I'll go into the bathroom, and instead of having the toilet seat nicely placed down, the toilet seat is up, and I get really irritated, right? And time again, sort of like through the pandemic last year, I was like, again with the toilet seat, like, can we just put the toilet seat down? And I would sort of kind of go out of the bathroom and like lose it on one of them, out of stress. Like, come on, guys, like, this is really gross. Put the toilet seat down. And I started being a little more focused on mindfulness, right? And thinking about, do I really need to go scream at them? Do I really have to have this reaction? And so what I started to realize is, you know what? I have a 10-year-old. He's going to leave the seat up. And sometimes my husband forgets too. And is it really that big of a deal? And why am I attaching all this judgment and all this anger and frustration to the fact that they leave the toilet seat up? Right? So instead of feeling angry and frustrated, just started putting the toilet seat down, because it's not going to help my family. It's not going to make anybody feel better for me to have that strong reaction and run out of the bathroom and go like express my anger at them. And one of the moments when I expressed my frustration, my son happened to be on a Zoom call, and his third grade teacher was like, wow, your mom is like really stressed out. So again, a moment of maybe don't need to yell about the toilet seat being up. But, just taking those moments of, do I really need to be doing this? Taking in 3 or 4 breaths and owning the fact that perhaps you are having a stronger reaction than is warranted because you are in a chronic state of stress and your emotions are perhaps out of control, right? So it's so important in those moments to just pause and notice what's going on, and it'll help you from getting into that stress cycle. So again, mindfulness and stress, it's this quadruple threat. The idea of awareness, it initiates that relaxation response. It allows you to reframe those unhelpful thoughts of why is the toilet seat always up, and helps you align the actions with your intentions. Like, I don't want to go fight with my husband and my son. I want to enjoy our life together. I don't want them to feel bad and feel like, here comes mom yelling at us again. So, aligning how you really feel and the good feelings you have about somebody with your actions. Mindfulness helps with that. So we're going to do a little meditation I love. It's called RAIN. And some of you may have experienced this before. It's Tara Brach teaches this. And what's cool is it's very easy to access. for all of you. Of course, there's lots of apps out there. You could use Calm, you could use Insight Timer, you could use Headspace. There are YouTube videos leading meditations, and they're all wonderful. What I like about Rain is it allows you to sort of be in awareness of where am I right now? What is the emotion that I'm feeling, right? And the idea of acknowledging the emotion, looking at it, thinking about what is it, what's the feeling I'm having, and then nurturing yourself. So we all have a tendency to sort of like bury our emotions or let them come flying out of us. But the cool thing about emotions is they're just energy in motion. And when you use mindfulness and you can stop yourself and pause, emotions go through your body in about 90 seconds. So oftentimes, if we have that mindful pause, we process the emotion and move on, right? As opposed to getting stuck in them and having them emerge in an unhelpful way. So we're going to practice Rain. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you all to, again, close your eyes. And I am going to I'm going to talk more about the Yale Mood Meter and after we finish our Rain meditation. But this is, I'm going to pick up the emotion right now of feeling a little anxious, right? And we're going to use anxious as the emotion we're feeling in our Rain meditation. Okay. So I'd like everybody to close your eyes, and I'd like you to just start to take some nice breaths. So just breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your mouth. And as you inhale, I'd like you to say this to yourself: I gather up all the anxiety in my body. And as you exhale, I release and let anxiety go. And I want you to breathe in again. I gather up all the anxiety in my body. And exhale, I release and let anxiety go. And just breathe in a normal fashion as I go through this meditation with you. This is how it is right now. I want to acknowledge that I feel anxiety. I'm not pushing it away. I'm noticing where anxiety lives. Is it in your stomach? Is it in your hands? Is it maybe in your mouth? Are you clenching your jaw? Does the anxiety have a color? Does it have a texture or a shape? Is it loud? Is it quiet? Is it hot? Is it cold? What's the underlying thought or belief about the anxiety? How long have you been feeling it? Do I feel any other emotions? Am I feeling maybe a little worried, enraged, exhausted, sad? How long have I been feeling this way? And just investigating, where are you feeling it? Maybe put your hands on your heart. What do you need right now? And breathe in and say to yourself, feelings come and feelings go. And breathing out, I'm not my feelings. Breathing in, I'm whole and safe. I am not anxiety. Breathing in, I'm feeling anxiety in my body, but I am not anxiety. And say this to yourself as we take some more breaths. May I be well. May I be safe and free from suffering. And may I be happy. And then when you're ready, just reopen your eyes. So that's called Rain. It's a really easy meditation to use. The idea is that you're carving out some space between stimulus and response, between thought and action. And that little bit of space can be the difference between regret and contentment, and the difference between an open and caring relationship and a toxic rivalry. Okay. And it's something that you can easily do yourself. Again, that was just a few minutes. You can do it with your family. My kids love to use RAIN. It's really easy to use. What I love about the slide that's currently up, the Yell Mood Meter, is that it's a visual to help you identify the emotions you're feeling and the nuance of the emotion. I have it printed out and up on the chalkboard in my kitchen. And, when my 10-year-old starts to sort of spin out, and frankly, even my college student or my husband starts to get really frustrated, I'll say, like, where are you? Is it, mad, glad, sad, scared, right? Red, yellow, blue, green. There's lots of different colors in there, lots of different shades of the emotion. But oftentimes, again, just anchoring yourself or your family member or your colleague on this, right? And instead of just saying, go breathe, right? You're saying, where are you? Are you red, yellow, blue, green, right? It is an easy, quick way to interrupt the stress cycle and get the person focused on slowing down. Okay, it's again, creating that mindful pause. Where are you? And oftentimes when we stop, even when you're really frustrated or angry, when you can stop and say, wow, I'm having this enraged reaction, and you pause and start to slow down and breathe, oftentimes it starts to come out of your body, right? Instead of getting caught up in the stress cycle. So I'd love to, as a second sort of invitation, in addition to the progressive muscle relaxation, I'd love to ask you all to print this out, right? If you have a printer, or pull it up on a computer, keep it up on in the computer or on your phone nearby where you can use it with your family. And in the next 2 to 3 days, use it once or twice, right? Use this as a way to create that mindful pause for yourself, for your family, for your colleagues, maybe for your neighbors, right? Just helping people anchor with where are you right now. So that's mindfulness, right? That's a quick tutorial. And look, there are courses out there. I'm actually getting an MBSR certification right now myself. And so there are lots and lots of courses about mindfulness and meditation out there, lots of different apps. But I wanted you all to just have this tool that you can quickly access and use to slow down the stress cycle without feeling overburdened, right? It's almost like this is a micro way of meditating instead of it being such a hard thing to take on. Okay, so EFT tapping is our last tool. What I love about tapping, this is the tool that probably requires the most amount of guidance in everything we've talked about today, and it does take a bit longer. There's a website called thetappingsolution.com that is a great way to learn about tapping at greater length. We certainly don't have enough time for me to dive into this too far. But the idea is it's based on the idea of acupressure points on your body, right? The idea that when you are and we'll talk about the tapping points in a minute, but it stimulates your body's relaxation response and sends that calming signal to the amygdala to reduce cortisol, bring in endorphins, and initiates that relaxation response. I've also seen lots of people use this before they do public speaking, if they're going into an interview or into a difficult meeting. There are even people who, are sort of using this if they need to go out and have a doctor's appointment and that feels really stressful, or if they're experiencing something that is really, feeling traumatic and scary. Tapping can be such a powerful way to help manage that. It helps minimize stress and maximizes performance. So what I want to show you is the idea of the tapping points here. And again, this slide will be accessible to you, and I would encourage you, if you're interested in this, to look at thetappingsolution.com and follow a guided tapping. But the idea is that you are tapping through a rotation through these points on your body with your hand, with the karate chop, right? So it's the top of your head, it's your eyebrow, the side of your eye, under your nose, your chin, your collarbone, under your arm, and then back to the top of your head. So you're doing that and saying through a guided process of words, right? So again, we don't have time for this. I would encourage you all to check out the tapping solution, where you can find tapping that are particular to the situation at hand in front of you. So there's some for public speaking, there's some for stress, there's some for anxiety, not sleeping. There's all different topics out there. There's also an app called Tap with Brad if you have an iPhone or an iPad. He's just a guy who got educated in tapping and has some great tapping practice that you can follow. I just want to pause for a moment and check the Q&A. I'm trying to see here if we have any questions. And someone is saying that they hope we're getting a recording. Yes, there's going to be a recording. So if you have questions, just as we're sort of starting to wrap up here, please put them in the Q&A. I'm happy to answer questions. What I really want everybody to know here is the idea that even if you think you're calm, stress is stealthy, right? It is a powerful adversary and it can hit you out of nowhere. And this is a journey. One tool might work today and it won't work tomorrow for you. You can't get to a Zen state. You can't sort of, again, reach in this, especially in this moment, you're not going to reach a place where you are 100% as calm as though you were laying on a beach on vacation in before times. But what you can do is create habits to manage your stress as it comes, to notice your triggers, to initiate the recovery, to understand you don't have control over your circumstances, but you can control your mind and your body and get them aligned with the tools that we've talked about today. So understanding, again, intentionality, knowing that you have the ability to slow down your brain, to slow down your body and get out of the stress response is what I really want you all to take away today. I also want to make sure that I announce the CLE code because this was approved for CLE credit. And that code is SS6387. There will be forms provided in the post-webinar email that you're going to receive along with the attachments that I was referencing earlier. So making sure that everybody's heard that, it's SS6387 for CLE credit. I just want to check and see, I have a question here. Let's see. So when I wake up at night is an absolute no to read and delete some emails so I feel more caught up when it's time to get up, and that seems to help me fall back asleep. So that's a great question. You know, look, I'm not going to tell you to not read your email. I don't want to get anybody in trouble at work. In general, looking at your phone is going to send a signal to your brain to wake up, right? To come into the world, and adrenaline is going to start flooding in. Depending on the topic of the email, the cortisol might start flooding in. So ideally, no, don't read and delete email. Will it help you in the morning to feel a little caught up? Maybe, but it's going to disrupt your sleep and potentially trigger you into an anxiety reaction or a stress reaction. So I would recommend, if you wake up in the middle of the night, frankly, I would say to the extent that you can put your phone not right next to your bed, everybody, that would be ideal. I actually have recently had some partners that I coach even say they've left their phones downstairs, and some associates too, because it is so tempting to just reach for the phone and start scrolling the news or social media, you know, looking at our emails to try to stay ahead. So ideally, for the health of your body and your mind, I would say don't pick up your phone in the middle of the night. If you absolutely need to, by all means, you do what you need to do. The one thing I would also say is if you are going to pick up your phone, ideally think about using some white noise. Think about using, I love the sleep stories in the Calm app. They are so simple. They're just people reading stories that are, you know, calming and soothing, and they almost always put me to sleep. They work for my 10-year-old as well if he's having trouble sleeping. So just even putting on a sleep story often will help you drift off to sleep. And so I would say maybe using a sleep meditation or, you know, just some calming nature sounds to get yourself back to sleep would be my preferred way for you to use your phone in the middle of the night. So hopefully that answers the question. I have a request to clarify the CLE code. It is S as in Samuel, 6387. So S as in Samuel, 6387. Hopefully everybody has heard that. I'm going to put it in the chat as well. There we go. I've put it into the chat, so hopefully everybody will see that. Okay, and I'm just looking to see if I have any other questions. Okay, at this moment, I don't. So if there's anything else, we're just about at the end of our time. I'm so grateful to all of you for being here. If anybody has more questions, I'm going to keep watching that for another minute or two, but I would love to hear from any of you. Please, feel free to use my email. I'm going to just scroll to the end here. There's my email. If you have questions or you're finding that these techniques are working for you, if you're finding that you want to, again, clarify something, please reach out to me. Don't hesitate. I love hearing from people. I'm an extrovert, so the pandemic has been really hard on me because I miss seeing people and I miss being in person and spending time with people. So even just the emails or the calls are always welcome. So please do reach out with any follow-up or any clarification you might want. And with that, I am all done, and I'll just stay here for another minute or two to answer any questions. And thank you so much again to Corey